I'm currently in my local music school, hence the interesting background sounds. So this video is basically going to be me talking about the concept of loneliness and also how introverts can be much more susceptible to these kinds of things. I live in quite a small city called Cardiff in Wales in the UK. One of the paradoxes of living in a city, as people who live there will tell you, is that you can be simultaneously surrounded by people, yet still feel very lonely and isolated. Introverts can often find themselves in a situation where they have a very well-developed and rich inner life and a strong sense of who they are, yet actually have very few people to share that with. Both philosophically and politically, I lean towards quite an unsympathetic worldview. If you have a problem, then you solve it yourself. Don't complain about it. If you're lonely, then it's on you to go out and meet people. But this can be extremely difficult and requires lots of patience and lots of persistence. Despite my unsympathetic worldview, I do find it very sad that there are people out there, or in there, that are desperate to be known. They harbour this secret desire for someone to crash into their lives and shake things up, for someone to give a fuck. So, my advice for introverts out there who are finding themselves in an isolated position is to reach out to people. Yes, that can come across as weird, and social norms may have to be bent and broken, but it will be worth it. So, for the sake of avoiding giving hypocritical advice, let me give some examples of when I've reached out to people and it's gone well. First thing to say, most of the time when you reach out to someone, nothing will happen. So it can be a bit of a numbers game. The reason I decided to film this video in the music school, despite having the unbelievably annoying person playing in the background, is that this is one of the places where I first started to do this reaching out to people approach to life. So this building is filled with rooms like this one I'm in now, and you have all of these people practicing their pieces, maybe studying for an exam, playing amazing music. Every time I'd come here and walk down the corridor, I'd walk past about 20 people that I wanted to barge in on and say, teach me what you're playing, or just give them a compliment. So one day I thought, okay, let's just do it. Since that point, I've met many different musicians that I've collaborated with, learned from, taught, and also in some cases just gone on to be very good friends with. Another fairly obvious example is this YouTube channel. I'm very curious how much of our regular viewers know that this is not actually my channel. I'm simply a humble servant. I remember seeing one of Luann's first videos and thinking, there's something about this person that makes me want to reach out to them. So we went from being complete strangers who are halfway across the world from each other to me making weird, rambly videos on the channel. I remember the first time that I appeared on this channel in kind of a cameo. I talked about how I do this strange thing where I just get in my car, drive somewhere I've never been before, and start up a conversation with someone and see where it went. Part of the thinking behind that very strange behaviour was that so much of our lives and the people we meet is kind of down to chance and randomness anyway. So why is it any weirder to be the one forcing the issue? Am I really going to rely on this organic randomness and hope that interesting people fall into my life when I could just go out there and find them? I was travelling recently. I told you this was going to be rambly. And there's a point where you're not quite above the clouds yet and you can still see all the houses and the landscape below, but they are tiny. It will never cease to blow my mind when I look down at a street of houses, that inside those houses there are people with their own individual complex lives, just like my own. Or when you walk past someone on the street, how much potential is available and lost when you don't interact with them. Now obviously you can't interact with everyone you meet, so here's my advice in a nutshell. If you see someone interesting, reach out to them. And this is the important part. Prepare yourself in 99% of the situations to get a negative or no response. If you do that often enough, it will be life-changing. So if you are an introvert or an extrovert out there secretly harboring this desire for someone to come into their life and get to know them, then maybe you could start by being that person for someone else. Now, I'll give you a disclaimer. There's a solid chance that this advice will take you down some very strange paths, but I think I can promise that it'll be fun. Also, like and subscribe.